people will want to really consider. You know how we think that we're being watched over, maybe by God, maybe by Jesus or angels or anything else. Uh, but what I want to talk about now is what if there was somebody else or some other organization that is watching over us? And we can refer to what we would consider the Galactic Federation. But I know in some cases, some people probably say, no, they don't exist. This is not what's happening. But in spite of what's all going on today and all of the changes and things that are happening, what do you think that we will now begin to notice that there could be some higher force at work? But what we're going to discuss is an article or something that I ran across several years ago. And I thought it's perfect time to kind of bring it back up, because what if some of these things in this particular article have some truth and some merit to it? And what can we see today compared to what the thought process was 3 or 4 years ago and what is happening in the news and the narratives that are out there today? So we're going to explore a lot of things, especially I'm going to go over this entire article, but then we're going to also do what I consider for why the big secret is question the narratives. See, if we are able to do that, especially here with why the big secret, then we can uncover the why in all of these situations, right? And then, as you know me, I'm going to always tell you how is not as important as the why. So let's go on this journey right now. And maybe you might be like, I see things a little different, but it also comes back to the point that, hey, there might be something happening out here. There may be a change about to happen. And that is something that we need to focus on as a collective. And we can kind of see what is happening on a bigger picture. Now, I'm going to talk about something today, and I might give you a good announcement, but let's get right into it. Back in 2019, there was an article that surfaced, and the headlines here was the former Israeli space security chief says extraterrestrials exist and Trump knows about it. Now, this all took place when Trump was in office prior to the election change or administration change. And so therefore, there was some conversations that Trump knew about what we're going to discuss today. And the guy here says it. Now, the background is that this gentleman who was part of the Israeli space program, he really said a lot of things back in 2020. And he also kind of admitted, hey, you know what? I wouldn't have done this years ago, but we'll go over some of this in the article. Now, he starts out by saying that a galactic federation has been waiting for humans to reach a stage where we would understand what space and spaceships are. His name is Hayam Ishii. Now, I kind of look at the narrative of that particular question, but let's just go over the entire article and then we'll backtrack so we can question some of the things that is being said. Now, he's a former Israeli space security chief, and he sent eyebrows shooting heavenward, what they call it, by saying that Earthlings, listen to me, have been in contact with extraterrestrials from a galactic federation. Now, he called the unidentified flying objects have asked not to publish that they are here and humanity is not ready. This is Hayam Ishii. He is the former head of Israeli Defense Ministry Space Doctorate, okay? Now, he told this paper, now he said in an interview in Hebrew, which ran at the time on that Friday, had gained a lot of tractions after parts were published in English by the Jerusalem Post. Now, if you think about it, we're talking Hebrew, we're talking Jerusalem, all of these spiritual places. All right. He says a respected professor, retired general, now that means he have access, said that aliens were equally curious about humanity and were seeking understanding the fabrics of our universe. Now, he also goes on to say that the cooperation agreement had been signed between parties and species, including an underground base in the depths of Mars where there are American astronauts and aliens represented. Now, he said there's also agreement between the U.S. government and the aliens that they signed a contract with them to do experiments here on Earth in our soil, in U.S. area. Ishii added that President Donald Trump, who was president at the time, was aware of the extraterrestrial existence and had been on the verge of revealing the information, but was asked not to in order to prevent mass hysteria. Now, this article goes on to saying that they have been waiting, the aliens have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we would understand in general, and also that spaceships are here. And he said, referring to the Galactic Federation. Now, the White House and the Israeli officials did not immediately respond to the NBC News report and when they requested a comment. And there was a spokesperson there that named Sue, and the spokesperson for the Pentagon, she declined the comments. Now, here's where it goes. A spokesperson from NASA, right? One of the agency's key goals was to search for life into the universe, but said it had not found any signs of extraterrestrial life. And again, this article was done in 2020, December. And NASA's still saying, and although we have yet to find signs of extraterrestrial life, NASA is exploring the solar systems beyond to help us answer fundamental questions, including whether or not we're alone in the universe, the spokesman said in a statement. This is NASA. Now, Ishid's ideas are spelled out in a more detailed, the universe beyond the horizon conversation with Professor Haim Ishid by Hager Publishing Company. So, all right. So as we get toward the end of this, Ishid, this particular Israeli former general who oversaw the launch of numerous Israeli satellites into space, said that he was only speaking out about this as attitudes were changing and people seemed to be more receptive. Now, he said, if I had come up with this saying today 5 years ago, I would have been hospitalized. Wow. And he told the report that today they're talking differently and I had nothing to lose and I received my degrees and awards and I'm respected into the university abroad. So anyway, he said, hey, listen, I have nothing to lose. Here's where I'm at. We're going to talk about this. All right. So as we come to a conclusion or concluding to this article, and we're going to go back over it, in May, Trump said space is going to be the future, both in terms of defense and offense. Now, we're now the leader in space, is what he said, and he presented with the official flag in the newly created military branch, the Space Force. Now, it focuses along with the Space Command, right, that we're supposed to be having. And our military domain is the U.S. preserving what we call satellite communications and focusing on geopolitics in what we call a new terrain. Now, the last part of this article says Ishid, the Israeli guy, comments immediately spawned jokes and theories online, and at least half a dozen accounts have been created at that time on Twitter, representing each from the Galactic Federation. And other users have asked him to get preferential treatment in meetings with the off-worldly group, right? And I can get into what Nick Pope said. Y'all know, if you don't know, he is Nick Pope, who was used to investigate UFOs for the British Ministry of Defense. Now, one of the things he said that it was extraordinary, right? And he said either this is some practical joke or a publicity stunt to sell his new books, and perhaps with something have been lost in translation or someone in the know is breaking ranks, meaning now somebody's trying to get some type of disclosure. And this was 3 years ago. Pope said that the UFO conspiracy theory and community was excited about the questions and remained from there. And the knowledge of the experience or whether or not it's been repeating something has been told. So at the end of this, he's saying there are still some missing pieces, and this is where we are. So at this point, that's the article. Now, as we understand how it went down, what was said, and I've always told you how is never as important as why, we're going to question the narrative. We see the narrative here. We hear what they're saying. I'm going to go back over and go over this so that we can kind of go piece by piece, see what you think about it, but also see if there's a breakdown in the narrative to either give you a different perspective, understand what is not being said, what is being said, and then ultimately why the big secret, right? Because at this point, this stuff has been out quite some time. And although there was profound things said in this particular article that this guy said, and once again, we can do a background. Would he know? Would he have been in the know, this Israeli guy, and all those things? But the first thing he says right off the bat was the security, which was the headline. Former space security chief says extraterrestrial exist and Trump knows about it. Okay. Now, I think we've all seen, if you've seen a lot of YouTube videos, you might have seen Trump apply and ask the question. Somebody asking about UFOs, and he arrogantly at some point, I would say, and I think this cool, said, yeah, I think there exists, or he came real close to saying it, if I'm not mistaken. And reason why I use the word arrogantly, because he's not, if it is there, he's not going to let people get over on him and say, oh, I didn't know about the UFOs. He like he said, he's going to know everything, because that's the type of president that he was. So this article now concludes, go right next into saying that there's a galactic federation have been waiting. Okay, listen to me. A galactic federation has been waiting for humans to reach a stage where we would understand space and spaceships. All right. So let's break down the narrative and question what we're talking about here, so that we as a community can get an understanding what these truth seekers, us as truth seekers, and what the big secret keepers tend to want to keep from everybody. If you start thinking about the Galactic Federation, I think we've all heard that term somewhere within our research or within the community of ufology, that there is some type of council that looks over what happens in Earth, that supposedly control some of the outcomes of things here, maybe protect us from some bad entities that are out there, maybe maybe could be part of some experiments of what's happening. Or from I was told, or I've read in several places, that they have this kind of rule that they do not interfere with what happens here on Earth, as though we're some type of project planet. And I probably said that a million times, right? Okay, so now let's break that down. He's saying a Galactic Federation saying that we don't understand space. And that could be a lot of truth in that. If you think about the narratives of what we're talking about, if we're going to question what we think we know with the Hubble satellites, with us traveling into space, do we really have a true understanding? Because after the time, we know there's wormholes, we know there's portals, we know there's so many anomalies out there when it comes down to this. Is it something that we as humans could comprehend? The other part is spaceships. Now, I'm going to tend to probably agree with that if the Galactic Federation is saying that we don't understand spaceships, and probably not, right? Because we're still in the infancy stage of building spacecraft that can go all across the galaxy and back, versus, short trips and short excursions or explorations into the moon and back, or maybe Mars. But what about the Star Trek type things, right? Where we can kind of go way out there, go anywhere that we want to go and see the entire universe. And so they're waiting to see if we're going to ever get an understanding, or are we going to get there. Now, that intrigues me the most, because there's a lot of things that we'll talk about from there. But I'll get what some of you think about the Galactic Federation, if you want to put that into the chat, and let's kind of see what your thoughts is when it comes down to the Galactic Federation. Because where I'm going with this conversation is, it is time for us, the truth seekers, the community, to begin to look back on what have been said in the past. And then you kind of want to put it in connecting dots to what is being said now, and see if some of those things are lining up to be any truth. See if those things are lining up to become some of the reality that we know today, because there were people that were shunned back in the day. And like he said, he would have been hospitalized had he mentioned this 5 years prior than the 20th of December, 2020. Okay. Another part of this was, he said that the extraterrestrials, all right, have been in contact with us, and that we at some point have, okay, let me back up right here. He's saying that once again, that we're not the UFOs or whoever's in these crafts are asking us not to publish who they are. Now, who are they asking this to, right? Or are they asking, and we're going to get into that, because obviously it said that there's some type of agreement that have already been made. And the other part of that, why United States, right? But anyway, he says that they don't want people to know because humanity is not ready. If that is the case, and it was 5 years ago, and if it was some type of signed agreement, why are they pushing for disclosure today? Why? Or, well, maybe it's us who's pushing, and then of course the big secret keepers and the military, all of the people, or the companies, private corporations, are fighting back to protect the secret. Now, could they be doing this in our best interest? Could they feel that we are not ready, although we think they're hiding something from us, although they're benefiting from it, probably from technology, money, all of these things? But is it in our best interest that they are making sure they're fighting to keep it a secret? If the Galactic Federation is sending signals saying, hey, don't tell everybody, who is pushing the narrative and why is the thing that they will push a narrative to say, let's put this out here, let's share all of this information, let's get humanity ready for what we would consider disclosure. Now, he said what sticks out to most is that he said that the respected professor said that the aliens were equally curious about humanity and were seeking to understand the fabric of the universe. All right, so that goes back. Let's question what he's saying here. He is saying that there's a group of aliens, Galactic Federation, different people, council or whatever, is saying that they are intrigued by humanity. But yet we have all of these stories of ancient Anunnaki or ancient astronauts that we were brought here. There are some stories that we were created by them. And that lets us know at some point what is really happening. How is that there's a group that are curious, like they found a lost puppy somewhere and going, where did you come from? How did you get here? Let's explore this puppy, so to speak, right? And other ones in our other histories, as we go down, we were created. We was here to mine gold. So it's almost like nobody's trying to be curious. Nobody's curious about humanity when they created it, right? And then, of course, we got the Galactic Federation, who's supposed to be regulating all intents purposes, things that are happening outside of this universe that we don't know about. Could be possible threats. It could be all kinds of stuff, right? That all kind of boils down to what is going on, and I think it's one of the things that we want to look into. I'll look into the chat here in a minute as we break the first part of this. Now, here's the part where it's stuck in my head, and I think that, for most of us, how does this really work? He said that the corporations or cooperation agreements have been signed, okay, like between the species, including an underground base in the depths of Mars, and where American astronauts and alien representative. All right, so where is it that Galactic Federation would assume that United States government rules the world or is the spokesperson for humanity? Why sign an agreement with this particular country unless something else? Now, of course, first thing I'm going to say, if the country did sell us out, it would probably be for trade, not secrets, but technology, right? And those technologies equate into advancement within battle, advancement within machinery, technology, planes, missiles, all of these things when you're talking about war machines and all this stuff. So, but once again, there was an agreement signed. Obviously, at this point, the extraterrestrials got some type of intelligence, some type of societal way about themselves that, okay, we're going to sign an agreement. And we're talking about agreement in our world is done by law, right? Agreement signed in our world is reckoned by law, and then that law can't be broken. And now, if it is, there's consequences to it. So what upholds the fact that our government can sign an agreement with some galactic federation? And what happens if we violate that agreement by shooting them down or, trying to capture them or whatever? And it could be a whole different species. I don't know. But what happens? What is the consequences of the broken agreement between the country and supposedly a galactic federation? Wouldn't that something we want to know? Wouldn't that something we want to know? What would be those things? And like I said, I'll look over here in the chat in just a minute to involve some of y'all in the conversation. But that'll be the first question that I would ask the audience. If there's a corporation agreement signed between the countries and the Galactic Federation, what would y'all think the consequences would be if it was broken? And have we broken it already? If the fact that you talk about with some of the other people from Stephen Greer and all them saying, hey, something big is happening, or does that mean that we got to get our act together? Or are they saying, hey, y'all got to get your act together before this? Or that goes back to when we talk about what happened in Peru and Las Vegas and all those things, there's multiple of species that are out here visiting this freaking planet, right? And so at this point, what do we do when it comes down to that? So my question, once again, I'm getting ready to look over here right now in the chat. So if you want to say something about it, that'll be great. And what do you think if this agreement that was signed between the species? Now, let me give you also one part of this agreement. It said there's an agreement between the U.S. government and the aliens that they signed that the contract with us to do experiments here. So part of this agreement is, hey, you let us do experiments on humans. Now, anybody who's doing an experiment on humans possibly is not the people that created the humans, right? They're probably like, hey, wait a minute, how did y'all get here? Who created this species? What toy is this? Man, we like it. Let's see what was doing. So can you let us study and see how this species was created? It's no different than the manufacturer of this car or some type of technology. They want to go back and reverse engineer. Or so the question would be, is it possible that humans could be reverse engineered? Is it possible that this agreement of them studying us, studying humanity, is because that collection of group of extraterrestrials wasn't the one who created the human race? They wasn't the species that brought us here, nor are they the ones who understand our makeup. And so therefore they're saying, can we study your people? Now, once again, why would it be United States? Why would they assume that United States is the one that is controlling things, will be the country that they need to listen to, or to say, hey, these people can sell out everybody? That'll be a question. Anybody want to challenge that one? Let me know, because at this point, that's one of those things from there. So, all right. So I'm looking in the chat. I don't see much right now, but you all can kind of go from there. Another part of this, as we go through the narrative, is that he added that Donald Trump was aware of the extraterrestrial existence and had been on the verge of revealing the information. Now, all right, we've had multiple presidents in the past. We have a lot of them that always kind of assume that a lot of stuff was going on there, but and I think at this point, it is for us to understand. And hang on one quick second here. I just need to respond here. All right. So one of the things I think at this point we could really, really want to, like I said, let's go back to the past and then come back to now to try to ascertain what has changed. Are we seeing something that has been materializing from an effort that could have been 4 or 5 years ago? Or it's time for us to go back and start finding statements and people that were saying things that was possibly outlandish when they was doing it back when it happened. But today, it may be falling in line to reality, to what we see. And that is something that we have to understand, because the question of that is people ready for what we know is happening? If these disclosures were to happen today, tomorrow, and there was some type of big reveal that they also have been studying mankind, what are your reactions is going to be? You're going to be friendly? Are we going to think they're friendly? Oh yeah, we know, they're going to put a disclaimer, no animals or no humans have been hurt during this testing and subject. Who knows? But let's keep going. And another part of this is when NASA, out of all people, gets into this conversation. Now, I'm still, okay, let me read first what they said. A spokesperson for NASA, this was December the 2020, the 19th or whenever, back in year 2020, said that one of the agency's goals, NASA's goal, was to search for life in the universe, but it had yet to find of extraterrestrial life. If this to be true, and this narrative of NASA is still today that there is nothing out there to see, folks, but yet we are seeing extraterrestrials, we're seeing spacecraft, we got whistleblowers, and NASA, out of all people who supposedly have the technology, the vision, the capabilities to look out there and beyond, is saying there's nothing there, folks. How are they getting away with that? Who's lying to us? Why would they lie? And how can we do something about it as people? We're paying our salaries, we're voting, or we're allowing the people that represent us give them money. Could the public come together and begin the process to force NASA to be true by starting some type of group movement to cut off their funding? Because obviously they're useless. If their whole key goals of the agency is to search for extraterrestrial life, but yet to find one. Now, okay, I can understand they could be milking everybody. They could be milking the people. NASA could be doing this because why not? The minute they do make the discovery that there's something out there, does the funding stop? Do we need them to search anymore? It's no different than disclosure. When disclosure happens and the world knows that a flying saucer is being driven by something inside of it, do the buzz stop? Does it slow down? And people like, who cares? And we're not going to worry about that, right? So those are things that I think we should take a look and think about. But the fact that NASA says nothing is out there. And also, NASA says that also we have yet to find signs of extraterrestrial life. NASA exploring the solar system and beyond to help us answer the fundamental questions, including whether we're alone in the universe. If that is in their mandate, I would like to really take a look and see if this is in their mandate, right? If what NASA is doing in their mandate. Now, I want to say coming in the next several days, I'm going to make a huge announcement. And it's just mind-boggling for where we're going and what is happening here. So y'all stay tuned. Watch for the feed later in this week, and you're going to hear some things. But anyway, why I wanted somebody to look it up, right? Somebody out there, truth seekers, find if you can see the marching orders of NASA. If it says in their marching orders, their scope and the funding that they're getting from the people says they are to identify or at some point extraterrestrial life, because we know they got this Hubble scope that's out there. Obviously, it's going the wrong way. Obviously, it's not going in a direction where we think the aliens are coming from, because they make them find them. It seems to be going somewhere else, because now I know it's a big ass space. We know that. So they can't look and cover it all. But at some point, there's a lot of enough reminiscences, things out there that we know they can go search for something. So that's something we'll get into. What is the narrative behind that? Ishii's ideas are also spelled out in detail in a book that he wrote, and it's called The Universe Beyond the Horizon, in conversation with Professor Chaim Ishii. Okay, so if you want to go and look into his book, that'll be something to do. Now, what he said now is that the reason that this guy's background, real quick, is that he oversaw the launch, and like I said, of the numerous satellites. And then he said he was only speaking out it now because the attitudes were changing and people seemed to be more respected. And he mentioned, had he come up with this and saying this 5 years ago, which at that time was 2020, so you're talking about 2015, he would have been hospitalized. He would have been put in a hospital and been deemed crazy. But he's saying today, different people are talking about. Now, once again, Trump talks about space in terms of defense and saying that we are the leader of this, and so things are going to go this way. But when this guy came out and he started talking about everything, he started talking about, what has been said, then he comes back once again and he talks about how everything has been joked. But here's the whole part of this conversation. Is there a galactic federation? Do we have any proof of a galactic federation? And that'll be something I think we all should know. And before we get into that next section, let's get into a couple of things here that I want to share with you all. So if you have not, as you know, we have people that support our show, and then of course sponsorship there. So right now, if you are in a business and you want to shout out, you want to talk about your business, contact us at whythebigsecret.com. Use our contact form, and you can advertise here your business like Celeste does, right? We talked about it all the time. If you got your journals, you want to make sure that you get those journals, and there's some great books in it. I even got it. And like I say, journals are a great way to deal with what's going on today. So there's a website there. Make sure you go there and do it. And if you do, put in a chat that you have definitely got her books and everything. And here's some of her journals right here. I'm just showing to you. I keep them right here. Beautifully done and pretty much. But anyway, these are one of the things that's going to help you and us do a lot of stuff. So we're going to question the narrative. We got to question the narrative when it comes down to what is happening, because today everything needs to be broken down from there as well. So as we move down to this, we ask ourselves the question, like I said, is there a galactic federation out there? Is there somebody overseeing us, watching us? And I'm not talking about angels. I'm not talking about the spiritual side. Is there someone looking down in this capacity and are saying, boy, these earthlings are crazy today, or they're doing some stuff? And that'll be something that I think we should definitely find out and pretty much look into from there. And once again, too, y'all give a shout out to our newest member, Blake Stanley there. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member and supporting the show. When we make our big announcements and have a few things in a few days, it'll be a members only chat. You all don't want to miss what is going to be happening. Okay. So one of the things about this is there a galactic federation? Once again, anybody in the chat got information that you want to say that you think possibly there is a galactic federation that is looking over us, right? Do you have that information that you could help us with to determine if there is a galactic federation, right? And so the thing about that would be what is happening, what is going on with that, and pretty much. So I'll wait for the chat. Someone saying, I do think there's a spirit that is spiritual because they are on a different dimensional planes. That's fine. That's fine, D, and that's great. But if you start thinking of the council, the pictures that you see, that there's some type of this group of species that all in one accord that supposedly are looking over us. And so the question of that is that it? Okay, Nicole says she struggled with the concept of Galactic Federation, and I get it. So if you want to explain and put it in there, I'll throw it up on the screen. What part of this do you struggle with? And the question is, why do you struggle with it? And even myself, I'm going to be the first to admit that, okay, I do believe, or I do have an assumption that there is a higher force at work. There is something controlling other things. There is possibly a group of beings that are probably regulating what is happening here on Earth, bigger than what we think, corporations and rich people and everything else. But at the same time, what is the purpose of all of that, right? Because ain't nobody stopping some of the stuff that we are hearing in the news and recently in Peru and all these other places, or even these Maui accidents, and something bigger is happening. Who is allowing those things to happen and virtually not go unnoticed, but unsolved, when it comes down to some of these things? And so if there is a galactic federation, what are their purposes, and why don't they intervene in things such as wars and all that stuff that happens here on this planet? So that's something to give us some thought. But Blake says, I only heard about it from channelers. Okay. All right. So now, so far, it's a mystical thing, right? I've gotten emails. I've gotten somebody say, Roderick, blah, blah, blah. I'm sending you a message from the Galactic Federation. I've gotten emails like that, right? And I just put them in the same folders as those ones that email me saying I just inherited $800 million, and I need to give him my banking account to get the money, right? The scam, not spam, but the scam folders. So, like I said, and if that's the way they want to communicate with me, wow, just call me on the phone. If you're gonna send an email address, you can at least get my telephone number and be like, hey, I'm such and such from the Galactic Federation. We've been watching you, and you're doing a great job. So, yeah, why not? I'll take that in a heartbeat. But the emails and all of that, I got them, and probably maybe over the last 4 or 5 years, maybe 8, that, hey, and then of course the Illuminati, when I got that a few times, that you have been called into whatever, and I didn't respond, and they didn't call me a second time, well, twice, but that was the email too. So the whole point, yeah, the emails from the rich prince, yeah, you've been blah blah blah, and it's just kind of crazy, and pretty much, and true story, I actually knew a pastor once. This is a long time ago. These emails have been going around a long time. He actually got an email from one of these scams, called me up, so excited. Hey, how can you help me get this blessing, brother? I'm like, blessing? What are you talking about? And he tells me the whole story, and I'm like, seriously, you believe that this is it? Yeah, I've been praying for a blessing, and now they're gonna send me $60 million, but they need the church banking account. I didn't even go to that church, and I'm like, they are screwed. They are seriously screwed. Anyway, that's another story. But he really was trying and believed that it was a blessing. And maybe it was. I just couldn't see it. But I don't know what happened to that from there, and pretty much. But all right. So the headlines, Trump knew, the Space Force is in force. I tried to, at some point, put it together with the Moore incident, but that had already happened in 2017. If you're not familiar with the Moore, go look it up. It was the celestial object that kind of looked like an asteroid, but it was behaving not normal as a particular asteroid when it entered into our atmosphere, and supposedly it went around our orbit and then eventually began to go back in a direction that most asteroids and things don't do. And it's been a subject of plenty of conversations, and now even a subject that it's returning. So I've seen several videos and articles about maybe it's on its return, but the people who are talking about it don't have a satellite to spot something that far out. So I don't leave it at that, and pretty much. But the whole point, what I'm making is, if we can go back in time, and that goes for anybody, if you're listening to me right now, if you can go back in time and you could spot some of the stuff that you heard back in 2020, 2016, and seeing if it's lining up today, as we're now pushing more and more things to kind of go up there as well. So think about that right across the board. Is that something that we're doing? And pretty much, if you want to support the show any kind of way, you can do a contribution to the show if you like. If you find value in what is happening here, the Cash App is the best way directly, or you can do Super Chat, or you can join our monthly membership to support our channel, or you can use PayPal, all those things. Anything is appreciative. And so I just want to thank you for that. So let's go back to, like I said, we got former President Trump that they're quoting or saying that he knew. I saw a couple of clips in the past that he talked about extraterrestrials and kind of alluded to that he knew. What would keep the most powerful persons on the planet, our presidents, who would keep them in check, who will basically tell them, you better not say no sugar honey iced tea about the alien technology? None whatsoever. Who, even if it was a general, what would possess a general to be able to tell the commander-in-chief that I'm not telling you nothing and you better not tell something? So what operates higher? Is there some type of cabal that operates higher than the United States government, but is able to tell the president, who can do whatever you want to do, that you better not, or it's not a good idea, basically shut up about telling the American people about aliens? Because I promise you something. If any president candidate today began to run his election campaign on the whole merit that when he get into the office, he gonna drain the fucking swamps of the military complex when it comes down to alien technology, Republican, Independent, Democratic. He got my vote, right? And he's gonna get your vote, right? We don't care what else he stands for, but he's gonna get your vote. He's gonna get a whole lot of new votes, not enough, but enough maybe to push him over to the edge. So that is something I think that we should think about, look into, and see. Nick says, let me put it up on point here. He said there's a secret courts that make legal decisions that are illegal to talk about. That legal infrastructure was built with the Patriot Act. Okay, so you're applying that there is another level between our Constitution, the way things, the legislative and the other branches, the way they're set up for laws and everything else, the House, the congressional, that now there's something else that is above, that is making decisions for us, Nick, maybe. I wish we can find out that secret, right? Because that'll be something worth definitely finding out, right? And pretty much. But are the government, or would they be a worldly, just to you, Nick, would you think, in just your opinion, that they're a government agency, or is they a multinational type of agency? Or could it be the council, the Galactic Federation? You know what I mean? Could it be one of those things? So that's a challenge. I think is something for us to look into, to kind of see what's happening. If you haven't had an opportunity, make sure you smash the like button and everything. And do. He said, we already know it's been in the news. Look up extraordinary redemption. Okay. And it's a U.S. government. Huh. All right. So somebody look it up. Extraordinary redemption, and see what we getting with that. That may be a good conversation for us to have and to talk about and go through the narrative of that, right? Because at this point right now, it's time to question everything. You have to question the narratives that were out there, and that's the only way that we're going to ultimately find the big secret, the why the big secret, right? And so we have to question those narratives and pretty much look into that, because that is something that is happening. And I truly believe that we have to look into this thing pretty much from there. So with that being said, is there anything? Yeah, we poked the bear and pretty much from there. And really, I just wanted to cover that tonight. Really, we're not going to stay here long. And pretty much, I just wanted to get in and out, talk about a few things, see how what we're talking about here when it comes down to questioning the narrative, basically going back to the past in order to look into the future. Historians have done it. Why can't we do it, but just kind of condense it back down to 3 to 5 years, that we can begin the process of looking at what was happening in the past to determine what is still happening today. Because if that's the case, we're running parallel to some type of organizations, possibility of some internal fight that can go down and pretty much doing that. And so I think it's something that we can look into from there. And so hopefully you all just enjoyed our quick conversation tonight and getting to the point of what is happening. Did Trump, or he knew about the extraterrestrials? Now, why was he stopped to not say anything? What is going on with this particular thing here? Old Crow said, I was just saying that I'm voting for whoever is disclosing. Also, I don't think it's that sinister to think that the CIA and IC use leverage with the Air Force and Space Force. Who wouldn't doubt it? It just, you see the government is trying to, congressional Old Crow was trying to some point consolidate the reporting of all these agencies into one particular unit, because they knew that they was all compartmentalized and they're not working together. And that posed a threat to all of the situation. All government is almost to a point that the Navy could have more technology than the Air Force. Air Force can have more technology than the Army. And almost to a point is that they run so factional that if they got into an argument, they could easily decide to turn on each other just because of what's been inbred over the years of I'm a Navy man and I'm an Air Force man or I'm a whatever. And but yet they're not sharing the technology, which is kind of strange because if we went into some type of battle with some other country at some point, would one of our agencies or military branches hold back technology that they know they can help our brethren, but they just don't want to expose it? Nick, could that be possible? Would they even do some dumb crap like that? Who knows? But I think that's a point of those things. Sonia in the World News says those documents that Trump had at his home in Florida may have been information on a UFO. Well, then if he tells me that that's what he had and he was holding them so he can release them on the underground internet Wikipedia, we need to go break him free. We need to get that shit. That's all he had to say. He could bring us all together and say, you do those secret documents or UFO stuff. That's all he got to say. We got you. We coming. You know what I'm saying? Just tell us if that's the case. But other than that, I don't know. Charles said they talk about the Galactic Federation in the Terror Papers. Terror Papers. All right, so we hear about it though. Okay, so I'm down with the fact that we hear about those things, you know. Yeah, you know. Yeah, we hear about those things in there, you know. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, let's chat. All right. So at this point now, that's where we are. So anyway, I just wanted to discuss that. Like I said, you know, if you haven't had an opportunity, just kind of look into the news, see what's going on out there and everything else, and understand that there is a time that we're going to need to start questioning the narrative, right, on all of this stuff that's happening out there because it is growing. We got more stories, we got more stuff that's coming out that we need to pay attention to what's happening in the news and go beyond the narrative, but question the narrative. Because after all, we got to know that the how is never as important as why. And then if we start questioning the narrative that we see, we can ultimately get to why the big secret, right? Because we're going to begin to ask why. I've always told you your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. It's time to think why. And I think it's time for us to come together as a collective to go beyond the articles, all the stuff we see. It's just so much. I get, I'm looking at my news feeds and there's, somebody claimed this and someone claimed that. And I don't care anymore about all that stuff. I care about why now, why today, why are more people comfortable with this? Why are they're not trying to hide this? Why are we being told one thing, but we see something else? Why do most people don't give a damn to understand that they are lying right in our faces and then won't ask the quick questions of what is going on? Every last one of you did it when you were a kid. We always, mama said this, daddy said this. Why? Because that was our curiosity at birth. That was how we are built. And somewhere along the way, we've been suppressed not to ask the why question. Just do what you're told. And they think that's still going to work today. And that's not going to happen because people are changing. Our young folks who are religiously, emotionally bankrupt is not believing none of that stuff anymore. It's crazy, right? So let's push the narrative and go down the road of why the big secret. Okay. I'm Roderick Martin. I'll see y'all in a couple of days, maybe tomorrow night. And then Wednesday, then Thursday, I got a surprise for y'all. And then we're going to make a big announcement, huge announcement. I'm talking really big. And you're going to enjoy it. And it's going to be huge when we do what we do. To my haters, I love you. If you can hate me and not knowing me, I can love you without knowing you. But here's the deal, what I find out. Here's how I come to the end of all of this. I really believe if my haters watch me to only tell me that they don't like me, they're really a fan. So if you're a hater, you're watching right now, and you like this dude, blah, 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 you're a fan. You're really a fan. Good night to you, fan. Love you, fan. All right. Oh, I'm still.
Why did Ruby shoot Oswald? Was there a conspiracy?
In a world shrouded in darkness and obscured by deception from the big secret keepers, a burning question ignites in the hearts and minds of truth seekers. Why? Let's dive into the abyss of the unknown. Challenge the limits of our understanding.
This bizarre sequence of double killings raised great questions. Who actually fired the shot that killed Kennedy?
Pierce the veil of secrecy.
Cattle found dead and the manner of their deaths are a real mystery.
Anyone who is concerned about lead in the drinking water in Flint.
And venture into the realm of conspiracies and extraterrestrial evidence.